Welcome, everybody, to Stay Curious. I'm your host, Mark Marquette, taking a sip out of my Apollo coffee mug here and wishing you all a happy March. Here we are, March 1st or March 2nd, 2026. And we're rocking and rolling with two great shuttle missions that had to do with astronomy. There was 10 wonderful shuttle missions in the month of March we're going to talk about. And it's Women's History Month, where we celebrate many of the achievements of women. We're going to talk about two women launched on the same mission on this date many years ago in the shuttle era. And we got some exciting news about Shuttle Fest and one very cool birthday to celebrate. But say hi to everybody out there. Is Marty Winkle. Hi, Marty. Looking here that we're going live. Where's my live? There we are. And there's an eclipse of the moon tonight. So, going to be a big event for you people out on the West Coast, but not so much here in on the East Coast as the eclipse starts at about sunrise, which is around 7 o'clock. So, hello, RG Jubilee's there. She's anxious to get it all going here today. Yes, it is time to stay curious. And Cliff Watson's up early in Australia down under. and Steve Jokums is there. He's got some surprises for us at Shuttle Fest, some models he's building that's going to blow your mind. And there is from Lake Wales, we got Mitch Rothman. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, Mitch, on our show. And then we got Carlton Bailey on Wednesday. And Connie McDaniel's been lining up our regular guests for the rest of the month of March. So let's kick it off there by saying, Marty, I hope you had a good weekend. We've warmed up here, pretty much back to Florida temperatures up in the 80s, and hope that all you are all thawing out there. Let me turn my volume down there, and everything's going well today. So we thank Hyatt Place for sponsoring so many of our events and being our hotel of choice here at the American Space Museum. The Hyatt Place is on 1 at the 405, and they is a modest facility, and it's just a few miles from Kennedy Space Center. Very affordable to stay at, next to the Boeing building. Our friends at Hyatt Place. And Shuttle Fest 5, we have a important meeting with that tomorrow. Ooh, look, Marty, my images didn't pop up. We lost that key again. I have to lower myself and then put that up. Anyway, Shuttle Fest 5, well on the way to go in June 19th, 2020, and 20th and 21st here on the Space Coast. We have created a Facebook page. Dave Stange and you all out there, go to Shuttle Fest. You will see the Facebook page that I created this morning, and we're going to start populating that with some of the pictures of some of the people who were there at the past 4 Shuttle Fests. And right up front is a way to get your tickets. So we'll have some big announcements later in the week about as we're finalizing the astronauts for Shuttle Fest 5. But it's not about the astronauts, as you all know. It is about the Fellowship of Space Workers and lovers of the American space program. And the astronauts, I'm not going to say they're secondary, but they are not the focus of a Shuttle Fest. It is the stories that they can enlighten about what the engineers did on the shuttle program. So hope that you can participate. I know Mitch Rothman and his wife are already big supporters of us. See, I hit full. Marty and I got to hit the image again, but that's okay. As we go to Mitch Rothman, look at him all dressed up there. He is a big advocate of the American Space Museum, financially and verbally, through his NASA Manned Space Facebook page. He's got quite a following himself. I forget, something like 25,000, I believe. But he'll be on tomorrow at 4 o'clock. He is the founder of Manned Space Media. They also have a YouTube presence there. So Mitch will talk about Moon Day on July 20th, why there is some advocates that have been to Congress, including Mitch, to talk about Moon Day. And we are going to try to make a big Moon Day splash up in Wapakoneta, Ohio at the Armstrong Museum this year. So, Mitch, look forward to seeing you. Cheers to you there, buddy. And he might even bring us some of his man space coffee with him, Marty. Okay, Women's Month. We celebrate the month of March. We're proud of what we did to celebrate Black History Month, featuring over a dozen astronauts. There is the Women's Month, one of the many, many artwork pieces up there celebrating women everywhere. And so, there is Dundee, Scotland checking in there with you, Robert Law. Thank you so much for watching today. 10 shuttles in the month of March. You know I'm going to talk about them. You bet. Let me get my book ready over here to get you a couple of the beautiful artwork there. We had, have I got a synopsis of them here? Yes. As you see there on the slide, 3 Columbia, 3 Discovery, 2 Atlantis, and 2 Endeavor. Okay. And so that leaves Challenger out of never flying in the month of March of its 10 flights. And these are from chronological order of the launch. Okay, mission wise. The C, D, and A stand for the orbiters that went up. Easy to track that. And March 1st, we had STS-109, a repair to the Hubble Space Telescope we'll talk about here in a few minutes. We're going to highlight STS-67, the second Astro Observatory flight in 1995. The first one was in 1990. And 62 was a science mission, 102 hard hat to the, as was 123 and 119 were all hard hat missions, the International Space Station. Then you had a DoD mission, Department of Defense, 29. The third flight of Columbia, all right, taken to space there with a gentleman we're going to celebrate his birthday, Jack Lausma, and the late Gordon Fullerton. And then the Atlas, I love talking about that later in the month. That is an atmospheric mission that really laid the groundwork for the global climate change data that we have today. So we'll talk about one of those, two of those missions here in just a minute. The month of March, 459 Earthlings were blasted off Earth and orbited it. 8 of those were women. And we're going to celebrate 2 of those women here in just a few minutes. Both of them flew twice. No, they didn't fly twice. A couple of them did fly twice in a month, though. All right, let's get to the next fun bit of news. Here's a happy birthday to this guy. Oh, my gosh. That is Jack Lausma, everybody. And Marty Winkle, thank you so much. Of all the astronauts that you put in front of me at your Grumman reunions, boy, Jack Lausma is my favorite. Of course, he did talk out to Kennedy Space Center and did a talk, and I drove him to lunch. I drove him to dinner at Zarella's one time. And he is a big University of Michigan. And I'm not. And so when I had my scarlet and gray of Ohio State Marty draped over my passenger seat, he opened up the door and he goes, "What's this? That's the wrong color." He goes, "What's this? That's the wrong color." And I go, "Climb in, Colonel Jack there." And he joked. And of course I pulled aside there. So really a good guy there. So we got somebody knocking at our door there. Come on in. What's up? I hope it's Girl Scout cookies. Hey, Tamika. We're live on the show here. You good?
Did you meet Gina?
No, I didn't.
NASA person.
Yes.
She's Gateway NASA person. She's a good person to contact.
Okay, you put me in contact. That's Tamika. You just had a bunch of Japanese kids in here. We need to get them to sit down live. You come back later, honey. I'll see you later. Winston Scott was here. Big day with 30-some Japanese students from Japan. And she wanted to let me know the educator there. We'll talk about Winston Scott and show you some pictures of that tomorrow. Had a big time with that. But we're talking about Jack Lousma, who turned 90 years old and on February 29th. He's a leap baby. Born February 29th, 1836 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Lousma was 90 years old the other day, or is it 22.5 years old since he's a leap day baby there? Regardless, everybody enjoys the company of Lousma, a very active astronaut promoting space exploration in the history of America's first space station, Skylab, where he broke the endurance record with his other two colleagues of 59 days in 1973. And Jack, of course, is one of the few that have showered in space, something they've not done on the International Space Station. Just shows you how kind of you didn't get a good shower, I guess. Remember Jack talking about that, Marty? Why don't you share on that USAC family microphone what you remember him saying about that? Oh, you don't? He said it was cold, damn cold. He said that was the coldest shower he's ever had in my life. He goes, and I've jumped in the polar bear challenges and stuff like that. And he also made the comment that his commander, Alan Bean, Moonwalker, never showered. He said he tried it, and who was the other Apollo or Skylab astronaut? Lousma, Bean, and Steve Jokums. Tell me who's the third astronaut on Skylab 2/3. I want to say Elliot, not Elliot. Someone's going to pop up there with it. But Skylab, he was on the second Skylab mission. I can see the Skylab 2 patch there, but I can't make out who that is on there. Bean, Lousma, and
Kerwin.
who?
Joe Kerwin. Joe Kerwin.
Kerwin. Yes, Kerwin. No, it wasn't Kerwin. Kerwin was on the first one. Because there's one from each is alive, and Kerwin's alive. I want to say it was his kid was an astronaut. Owen Garriott. I want to say Garriott. All right. So anyway, Jack, what a guy. There he is, Owen Garriott. Yeah, so Bean and Owen Garriott from July 28th to September 25th, 73. 9 years later, in March 1982, Lousma commanded the third flight of the orbiter Columbia, spending 8 days in space. All right. That had to be cool, him and Gordon having the whole place themselves for 8 days. That was pretty roomy, I'll bet. They were blocked out of landing at White Sands. I'm talking about, I'm sorry, at Edwards Air Force Base, forced the only shuttle landing at White Sands. And for years, till its fatal day, they kept finding sand falling out of Columbia in there. A good guy, ran for politics, didn't really make it there. I could have gone to that picture there and seen Garriott up there. Jack is really a man's man type of guy, isn't he, Marty? A Marine. He's 90 years old. Wow, and just privileged to have met him a couple times, hung out and talked with him. He loves talking about space. And guess what? We don't have it confirmed, but we're going to reach out again. There is some interest from his daughter, Mary, that he could come to Shuttle Fest. Jack's wife, Gracia, long 50-some years they've been married. She has some medical issues, and it'll kind of hinge on her whether he can come or not. But there he is a couple years ago, always looking fit and happy. And another funny story was Marty stayed at the Courtyard Marriott that Delaware North built behind the Hyatt place, our sponsors, and they have one of those little astronauts that project up on the wall, patterns, and it moves and all that stuff. And I said, I heard they have those in there, Jack. He says, yeah, I had one beside my bed. I said, well, was that cool to watch on your screen, on your ceiling? And he said, I don't know. It didn't have a checklist, so I didn't know how to turn it on. He said that. He said, didn't have a checklist there, so I didn't know how to turn it on. And I'm going, that's an astronaut. A Marine. God bless you. 90 years old. Can't wait to see you again. Jack Lausma. Hopefully, fingers crossed that he could come to Shuttle Fest. How cool would that be? Way cool. And we're efforting that as we speak. Right, Chris Callie? Okay. And Steve Jokums met Jack's niece, he said. Everybody knows everyone, Garriott, but me on there. Thank you. Thank you so much there. So, and MarQ, he's already trying to make those phone calls to Mary to find out. The moon, tomorrow, tonight, after midnight, is 14 days old. What's that mean, Marty?
Definitely.
It's big and bright in the sky, full moon, going to rise tonight, right at sunset. Saw it last night rising above Cape Canaveral when I was out there at the Port Canaveral last night. What a beautiful evening that was. And I had the best company of all with me, too. So there, shout out. And, but we're going to have a blood moon eclipse. So they're always a blood moon eclipse now. They're not a copper penny eclipse. They're a blood moon eclipse. All right. Well, it's going to start at 6:04 a.m. totality. Now you're going to see the moon go from full into like phases, but where the Earth's shadow covers it up. Everything has a shadow. You go out on the sidewalk, you see your shadow. You can also see the sidewalk. So through some of this dark shadow, you can see the moon, of course, through a telescope. But it starts to be full at 6:04 a.m. and sunrise around here is about 7 o'clock. So it's going to end at 7:02. So we're going to see just a little bit here on the East Coast, the full phase, and I'm going to get up for it. And then, but out in Colorado, you'll see the whole thing as well as out in California. But you got to lose some sleep. 3 in the morning up at California is when the totality starts. All right. The whole process starts about an hour before totality and an hour after there. So, so the peak again, you have almost an hour of when the full moon is covered up in the Earth's shadow. Why does it look orange or red or blood? That is the Earth's atmosphere filtering through it. The sunlight's filtering through the Earth's atmosphere, and it shifts everything to the red end of the spectrum of how the sunlight's reflected through it. That's why you see red sunsets and stuff like that. So lose a little sleep, get up, and see the blood moon eclipse tomorrow morning. And one of my favorite stories of all time, March 1st, though this is the second, it was proposed that we use pigs as guinea pigs, literally, pigs in a mercury capsule. And there you have a pig up at the top in a seat, and at the bottom, wired up. Why? Because pigs have a lot of anatomically human tissues and so forth. In fact, there's people pioneering pig lungs for human transplant and things like that. But nope, we ended up using a person in there, first then chimpanzees and then people to put in a mercury capsule. So, but they thought about it. Okay. And then this is Venera 3. And Venera 3 on March 1st was the first object to hit a planet. Now, Russia had already hit a few things at the moon, and so had we. But in 1966, they launched Venera 3 to Venus, and it was supposed to take about 3 weeks to get there. Instead, it missed Venus by 26,000 miles. So it still had some energy retro rockets in it because it was going to be a proposed lander. So they used some of that fuel to correct it and made it come back and smack into Venus, all right, which it did, the first object to crash on another planet. So that's another first, but again, it wasn't a successful mission. Venera 3, Venera for Venus. Another one of my favorite stories, as well as the pigs in the capsule, is this man who was trying to pioneer something that is a real thing today. Rockets launched from balloons. And that is, where's my notes on that? I got my notes here. There we are. A raccoon. Okay, not a raccoon, but a raccoon. That is none other than Mr. J.A. Van Allen himself of the Van Allen belts with a rocket that they could launch from the surface of the Earth. These are called, we launch them all the time at places like Wallops Island to survey atmospheric conditions and so forth that go up 40, 50 miles maybe. Sounding rockets, they're called. So he wanted a small, high-performance sounding rocket launched from a balloon above most of the atmosphere. A raccoon was a low-cost technique. It was conceived during the aerobee firing of the Norton Sound, and here's one of the this is one of the concepts up there. You see the rocket on a balloon, get it up high, trigger the ignition. And they were first launched from an icebreaker in Greenland under James Van Allen. They were later used by the University of Iowa group that he was part of course, from ships at sea between Boston and Greenland. And a variety of upper stage rockets were used. So the first concept of the raccoon was on this date in 1949. All right. So way ahead of its time. Here's another way that they would get the balloon up, the rockets on the right. So later on, we did the Pegasus rocket out of an airplane wing. All right, carried up by an airplane wing, launched like a rocket with a warhead on it, actually. So, and this is still a concept being used and thought about today. All right, though it must not be too popular. Don't hear a lot about it. And I wonder how that balloon lasted when the rocket flame went by it, Marty. That wasn't probably too good for the rocket balloon there. But this is what we do on Stay Curious, is show you things that maybe you don't know about before. And there's a raccoon, all right, in orbit or going up, not to orbit, but going up to space to do tests of atmospheric things. Sometimes they tested materials on these rockets. But most of them were atmospheric to figure out the Earth's atmosphere and the dynamics of all that. So, all right, well, let's get to our first shuttle of the month of March, launched on March 2nd. Okay, this is the first shuttle to connect the internet with the rest of the world. 31 years ago, Marty, the infant internet was used by Astro 2 to communicate with more than 200,000 computers from 59 countries logged into Astro 2's homepage at Marshall Space Flight Center. More than 2.4 million requests were recorded during the mission, many answered by the crew on orbit. So, I'll bet you didn't know the internet's been around 3 decades. It's become such an ingrained part of our lives, okay, that we can't live without it. I can't do a program without it, can we, Marty? We're on the internet right now. So let's look at the, this was the second Astro mission. As I mentioned, the first one was 5 years earlier. They had wanted to do 6 Astro missions. This is 3 telescopes in the payload bay. All right, from different universities around the country. We'll show you those in a minute. Let me get my new book here. My new space book, Space Mission Art. Okay, by Luke Wesley Price. I'll give old Luke Wesley Price a shout out there. Kind of a cool book. On the STS-67 mission patch, we see Endeavour. Let me make that bigger. Orbiting Earth with the Astro 2 mounted in the instrument pointing system in the payload bay. The 3 sets of rays emanating from the Astro 2 are for the 3 ultraviolet telescopes it housed: the Hopkins Ultraviolet Telescope, the Ultraviolet Imaging Telescope, and the Wisconsin Ultraviolet Photopolarimeter Experiment. The telescopes were aligned to study the same astronomical experiments, objects in space, and are shown here focusing together as part of the NASA logo, which also forms the A in Astro 2. This honors all the teams of NASA who work behind the scenes to make the Space Shuttle program successful and help achieve a greater understanding of the universe through astronomy. The two atoms on the border represent the search for the ultraviolet spectrum for the signature of the primordial helium from the very early universe. The galaxy in the background, along with Jupiter and its 4 moons, total of 6 celestial objects, plus the 7 large stars, combined to form the mission's number 67. Ooh, okay. And they also did biomedical experiments, including a study of potential treatment for colon cancer. Okay. And on board this groundbreaking mission was Steve Oswald commanding his third and last flight. They're in space here. Steve Oswald's in the center. To his left and our right is the pilot Bill Gregory, his one and only flight. Wendy Lawrence is in the back, upper left. Up there's Wendy. This is Tamara Jernigan on her third of 5 missions Tamara was on. And then Wendy, this is her first of 4 flights up at the top. The two gentlemen, or the man on the far right, that is John Grunsfeld, who many of you met. This was his first of 5 space flights that included 2 trips and spacewalks to the Hubble telescope to repair them. He talked about those, and that was a lot of fun. In the middle is Sam Durrance and Ron Parise, and they both have passed away. And Sam Durrance was really a good friend of the museum. And I didn't know much about Parise there, but they have passed away. So this was the longest flight of Endeavour at 16 days and 15 hours. All right. And how many flights for Endeavour was that? Let me look here. 67. Curious. I read something that I thought was a misprint. Yes, this was the eighth flight of Endeavour and was the longest. Okay. So they did a lot of they didn't look through telescopes. They pointed to telescopes and constantly talking to people at the colleges that these were represented by, and Johns Hopkins University in Wisconsin, highly involved in these astronomy. And here they are in the payload bay of the space shuttle, and they have preserved most of this, meaning the team led by Mikey Haddad, our level 4 engineer, all right, and Scott Vongen helped find some of the pieces and parts of one of these telescopes. They're looking for the rest of it, and it right now is in a beautiful display in Huntsville, Alabama. And there is the 3 stars of Orion's Nebula I can see, upside down. They're south of the equator. So that's pretty cool to see out there. What a long mission. I'll tell you. Astro 1, okay. Astro 2, there was going to be 3, 4, and 5. And Scott Vongen was going to be the astronaut to go up there as a primary astronaut, like Sam Durrance was for the first 2 missions. So Scotty, sorry about that, buddy. He was that close to being an astronaut. But so they have a lot of fun. And Astro 1, all right. So they adopted Rastro, okay. All right, 2 as their mascot, okay, for Astro, the dog on the Jetsons there. So there's Rastro 2, the dog there. So they always have a lot of fun with their logos and stuff. So, well, let's segue into 2 women that flew on this flight. We're celebrating women in space in Women's History Month. We're going to do that all month. And I love what Sally Ride says. You can't be what you can't see. I think that is such a cool statement, all right? It applies to everything about life. An athlete, you can't be what you can't see. You can't, but of course, Sally was the first woman to go to space, American. She knew that women and men were going to be looking at her. And Marty, just like how many astronauts do we have, say, the Apollo 11 moon landing inspired them to become an astronaut? We hear that quite a bit, didn't we? And so we know that Sally Ride inspired little girls. Many of these women here shown, a bunch of Artemis women astronauts in there. And so we know that she inspired them to be which you can see me being a successful woman astronaut. Wendy Williams was born in Jacksonville, Florida. Okay, I think she's about 63 years old. She's the daughter and granddaughter of naval aviators. Her grandfather was the noted student athlete Fatty Lawrence, and her father was the late Vice Admiral William P. Lawrence, a Mercury astronaut finalist and former Vietnam prisoner of war. She visited the Mir space station twice. Okay, she's a frequent presenter out at the Astronaut of the Day at Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex. I mean, yes, her nickname, as her tag says, is Too Short. All right. She was going to stay on the International Space Station, but she was too short to fit in the Russian spacesuits, which was a requirement just not to do a spacewalk, but if she had a space emergency. Tough to get in there, and your arms don't go out to the gloves, or your feet go down to where the boots are. So she's definitely a wonderful person. We haven't seen her this year. She laid off for a few. She's coming out there 2 or 3 times a year, is what I'm trying to say. I think she'll be back soon. Let me have a sip here. Ah, yes. That is kind of a cool cup there. Period of Apollo. Okay. You got stuff on the back here, American flag. Belonged to Phil Hooper. Family brought this in, and I have to make sure it works, Marty. You know, it's holding the coffee real good. So we might polish it up and put it out there in the gift shop. All right. Or maybe I'll just keep it for a while, because it's a good prop. Wendy is awesome. She's on the Mir space station twice. I asked her one time what was the difference between the first and her second visit. She said, more clutter. They don't throw away anything. She said it was just a computer dies, they just put it in the corner. Now, they're supposed to put stuff like that in the cargo ships and send it back, which I'm sure they do to burn up in the atmosphere. But she's quite a treat, and we can't wait to have her back. And I guarantee you she'll probably be part of a Shuttle Fest event one day. There she is in space. Wendy Too Short. Okay, Wendy Lawrence there. Her father has a Navy destroyer named after him. Don't pin me on the destroyer part. A Navy ship is named after him. Like we said, he was a finalist for the Mercury, and they kind of had a fallout that they made up later in his life after she was an astronaut. Really a compelling story that I've told on Stay Curious before. And there is Wendy with the one and only Carlton Bailey and Fodzie, holding Fodzie in his hand there, Fodzilla. And Carlton will be with us Wednesday. Okay, you are forewarned, everybody. We'll have him talking about some of his latest photography out the Space Center, as well as maybe some of these missions he may have photographed, or just get his take on life in general, as we like doing when we're baby boomers, looking back on life. So, Carlton, we look forward to your visit. I'm sure Wendy will never forget meeting you with that cat in space shirt on. Here is Tamra Elizabeth Jernigan as we celebrate another lady during the March Women's Month. Born May 7th, 1859 in Chattanooga, Tennessee. All right, she did keep her maiden name Jernigan. She attended Santa Fe High School in California, though. One of those born in Tennessee, but grew up in Santa Fe Springs, California. She attended Stanford University. She played varsity volleyball and earned her bachelor's in physics and her master's in engineering, and also a master's in astronomy and a PhD in astronomy from Rice University. Her research focused on the modeling of high velocity outflows in regions of star formation, gamma ray bursters, and the study of radiation produced by interstellar shock waves. My kind of gal, Marty. That's some good stuff to be learning in there about our universe there. There she is in space. And there she is with her husband, astronaut Peter Wissoff. Okay. They have a child together, of course, an adult person now. And they've worked since their retirement in the astronaut corps at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Okay, so there's Peter Wissoff with our second woman of the month to highlight, Tamara Jernigan. She flew with Tom Jones, and famously, they couldn't get the hatch open on an EVA on one of their missions there. There was a bolt stuck in the mechanism to open up the hatch. The last thing they had to do, and it didn't work. And Story Musgrave tried to help them figure it out and all that stuff. So, but she did get to walk in space eventually. So, all right. And finally, the shuttle of the month launched yesterday, March 1st, 2002. Wow. That's 24 years ago. And I know this guy remembers it like it was yesterday, the commander of it, Scooter. Where's my notes on 120? There we are. STS 109. All right. Let me put my spectacles on and let's find out an obvious looking astronomy patch here. We see Columbia rendezvousing with the Hubble Space Telescope high over the USA below. This was the fourth servicing mission undertaking to improve Hubble's performance and extend its lifespan. Here, Hubble's pictured displaying the smaller, more efficient, and more powerful solar array panels that were installed during this mission. The space scene in Hubble's aperture is known as the Hubble Deep Space Field. Okay, and that's the opening there with Saturn in there. After the crew had finished their service and upgrade mission objectives, Hubble could continue its investigation into the furthest reaches of the visible universe, relaying back to the Earth the incredible and never before seen wonders of deep space. Sean Collins designed this patch. All right. And you had a series of EVAs by John Grunsfeld, Richard Linehan, James Newman, who we've met, as well as Grunsfeld. And Newman, we've met many times, really like him. And Mike Massimino, who was also on The Big Bang Theory as the astronaut on the space station. They included a new power control unit and experimental cooling system. And then Altman led another trip up to space. Dwayne Carey was the pilot there. And the last repair mission was 125. Okay, let's see. This was 2002. Let me see when 125 was. 125 was 115. They snuck that in between a bunch of hard hat. There we are. 125 was in 2009, so 7 years later. Okay, Altman goes up there with Grunsfeld and Massimino again. And Greg Johnson, Megan MacArthur, and Andrew Feutzel were the other astronauts. So, let's see here. We've got, there they are. Thought this is fun. That's an earlier Hubble mission there. That's Scooter in the middle. He was the Top Gun aviator making his third space flight. Pilot was Dwayne Digger Carey, his only space flight. So both pilots today of our missions, 109 and 67, were a one and done pilots, Marty. And though there was about 15 more missions left after 109, and well, more than 20 actually, but Digger Carey didn't stick around. All right, and then '67, we had what the other Bill Gregory didn't stick around for another shuttle mission. That is, have I got him in space here? Yeah, I do. We'll show him in space. So what I thought's cool about this is the green screen that they photographed him behind. Okay, so just another lineup astronaut day in there to check out things but this is, we can put anything we want behind you. Okay, but we're gonna put this lopsided galaxy that is really a cool one behind you there. It's not the sombrero. It doesn't really have a name. And of all the things, Marty, they could have used mine. I'd rather had that behind me than this. So, but let's look at the astronauts. Oh, that's the spacewalking astronauts there. Okay. Of course, that is the short lady there is Nancy Curie. Her fourth and last space flight. She was on the robotic arm. Very, very important. Okay. So left to right, you got Massimino, you got Linehan. It's his third or fourth flight. This was Massimino. Grunsfeld then is you got Scooter, then you got Nancy Curry, then you got Grunsfeld, and then on the outside you got Newman there. And Newman's a fun guy. He's a surfer. I made a sketch of him hanging 10, and he told me hanging 10 is your toes are over the board. So I corrected that later. Grunsfeld, Linehan, and Massimino there on the right. So didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with Grunsfeld, but he certainly signed a lot of things for us at Shuttle Fest, and hope to have him back. And there is the Hubble telescope. I think that's when they captured it because they replaced it with shorter solar panels there and more efficient to boot. So hope you've all enjoyed this look back at the universe, even with this white stripe behind us here. It's still a spectacular image. There we go. We've got 3 different images, the pillars of creation. In the background is one of those classic shots of all the galaxies. Every star is a galaxy. And then you got 3 galaxies that are interacting there in the upper right-hand corner. All of this possible by one of the mankind's greatest technological marvels, the Hubble Space Telescope, and our ability to show things that would never be visible from the Earth. Although there are a lot of telescopes getting more powerful and so forth that they're can correct for the atmosphere and stuff like that. So hope you enjoyed our kicking off our shuttles of the month of March. A look at 2 women in the month of March. Let's get the eclipse of the moon there while I'm saying hi to everybody. Mitch Rothman tomorrow. Thank you, Hyatt Place. And 90-year-old Jack Lausma. Love you. What a guy. And just to show you here, as I say, thank you, RG Jubilee. Got to get up. The peak of the eclipse is about 6:04. It's going to be low setting, okay, in the west. And so you'll be compromised to see it. I'm going to try. Cliff Watson, not sure what that situation is with you down in Australia. CT Cubing, thank you for sticking with us and part of our family here on Stay Curious. Gary Gerald, Ophelia. Gary's in Georgia. Ophelia is in France. Mitch Rothman is down the road near Bach Tower. Dave Stangy's up in Michigan. Mostly Parked is here on the Space Coast. Carlton Bailey's over there, his hacienda, not too far from here. Robert Law in Dundee, Scotland. Mark Thell. And I think Mark Thell is, he's in Miami, I think. Tom Celentano up in Connecticut. They're thawing out. Mark Usiak in Pennsylvania with his brother Tom. John the Beagle Dad and Fred Kilner. All right, Fred, thank you for being a good Stay Curious watcher today. So tomorrow, got Mitch Rothman in here. Talk about all kinds of things that whatever Mitch wants to talk about, but he's just like us. He loves talking space and sharing space all over the country. All right, he does. So we'll have a great conversation with Mitch after our Shuttle Fest committee meeting tomorrow that we're looking forward to, chaired by none other than Marty Winkle. So, Mark Thell's in Minnesota. Thank you, Mark. We hope you're thawing out there. And that's right. Tom Usiak points out that STS 109 that we talked about was the last successful landing, and then we had the Columbia reentry disaster. So that's bittersweet. Repairing the Hubble telescope so important, and then its last flight of 107 was a very good mission, except the reentry. So thank you all for staying curious with me today, Mark Marquette, and I can't wait to see you all either in our museum or on Stay Curious again, so we can spend a little bit of time together, share my coffee mugs, and bridge the space between us. Thank you, Marty.